Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real. Greetings and salutations, everybody out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I am the host of the BlackUSA.news morning show. For those of you all who joined us yesterday, this is a part two in our conversation from Derek Machado, because I'm not sure if he really wants his how many of y'all he considers friends, so I don't want to put him out there like that. We're going to talk about yesterday's show was so amazing. We had a really great opportunity to talk about what happens with entrepreneurs and how he was able to take his business and make a pivot during COVID that a lot of people would not have thought was the right way to go. Had some follow-up conversations with some audience members yesterday, and they were really impressed that he was able to take time and focus on his business for 3 months to really reinvigorate it and make that pivot. The other thing that a lot of our audience members found really intriguing was kind of the counterintuitive nature of increasing his stock or increasing his inventory or offerings to clients while the market was on a decline. And what happened? It paid off. He was able to take advantage of the fact that a lot of the other businesses in his market were on the decline. A lot of them were not able to make the pivots. They were trying to play it safe instead of being more aggressive when the market shifted. His aggressiveness paid off. But as we started talking, I realized that a lot of his success had to do with his mind state. He is anchored into kind of the real. What is really happening? How does money really work? How do these situations and networks really lead to business success instead of just making up a story in his head? A lot of times, entrepreneurs, we do that. We have this story about who's going to buy what, when they're going to buy, how they're going to love the product, what's going to happen. While our job is to predict the future, sometimes we're not really good at it. And so we need to have a mindset that's really going to propel us and make sure that we're able to take it to the next level. Before we get in and have an opportunity to talk to Derek, I want to give a shout out to Shared Space. That show last night, it was amazing. Had a really great conversation about child support and child custody and some of the realities and lesser known aspects of what happens during that process. They spent a lot of time demystifying some of these ideas and these notions in the background and really giving people some quality information. Tonight, you're in for a treat because it is the Donnie Glover Show right here on BlackUSA.news and on our Facebook and YouTube channels. He'll be here tonight giving you the news that you can use. Uh, as a as the host of the show, I want to take an opportunity to give a shout out to some people who are doing some really big things out in the community. First, I want to shout out Healthcare Ready. They're a organization that works to ensure that a lot of the things that we need in crisis situations are available. And super shout out to their CEO, Dr. Nicolette Lewis Saint, for all the great work that she does. Big shout out to Lisa Phillips of Celebrate Us Workforce Academy. I guarantee you that Lisa is going to be a guest on this show eventually. And one of the reasons is that she is really anchored into working through and helping our community. Her newest project, Second Chance Academy, is really giving an opportunity to get funding and scholarships for student athletes who may not have had the opportunity their first go round to get in and really make a go of their academic career. Who else? Stacy Price from the creative marketing officer for Aid in Marketing. They're out there doing really amazing things, and I'm really grateful for all the help and support that she has lent in getting the show off the ground. Want to say, I mean, I could do this all day long because I know some really dope and great people. Big shout out to Kia Ross of Assessmentize, really holding it down. Hopefully, we'll be able to get her on the show one day to talk about what's going on with the beauty industry. And Michael Haney talked to Donnie Glover yesterday. Said shout out to you. All right, that I guess that's enough for right now for me pontificating and talking about how great my friends are. But you know what? I'm not going to stop that. So, because what I'm going to do right now is bring another friend of mine to the table, Derek Machado, otherwise known as D. Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How you doing, brother?
Doing pretty well, dude. Like, I got to be honest. Yesterday, that show was amazing, man. Like, I had a great time, and just to learn more about you and your wife and the way that you all have done business, and gotta say, really impressed about your pivot. That was some really good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I had a great show. I was talking about it all day yesterday, sending out I'm sharing it to everybody and seeing how the feedback, and I had a lot of fun, man. It was awesome.
Oh, well, the cool part then that's beautiful because we're just gonna do it again. You ready? We're gonna do that all over again. Except today we're gonna talk a little bit about mental health.
Yes.
Mental health. Well, let me be clear, because I am not a mental health practitioner, not a licensed clinician, and I know you, and you're not either. All right.
No, I'm
so
not.
So what we're doing, we're not going to delve into mental health, the diagnoses and the treatments. What I want to talk about is the intersection of how you manage an entrepreneur's mindset, because it's rough out here. I mean, it is very difficult to kind of make a go out of this a lot of times because the resources you need may not be there. You have a great idea and you get ready to go for it, but there's always one more obstacle.
Yes.
You have everybody in your ear. Oh, you know what you should do? You should do this. Oh, I like that design, but you should do this. So your mindset becomes critical in your success, has been my experiences coaching and working with entrepreneurs. Tell me a little bit about how you manage your mindset.
Well, you know what? I've always been a strong-minded person all my life. Even as a kid, I was growing up where I grew up in the Bronx and in Hudson County. You know, it's a rough neighborhood. So funny enough, I've never been one to engage in any type of smoking, any type of drinking. I just chose not to. And I'm saying that to say that even at a young age, I had the mindset to be strong-minded. And if I said no, no was no. And I think it's very important that you do that. Like, you know who you are, you know where your ground is, and you stick to it. So my parents also were very supportive of me. I was an athlete when I was young. So if I made a mistake on the field, my father would literally be like, okay, what happened? Why did it happen? And let's talk about that.
Okay.
Instead of just being like, you should have caught that, why weren't you focused? You know, it was always a conversation. And I think those conversations really allowed my mind to grow and for me to create a foundation in myself through those types of conversations, opposed to just judgment.
Okay.
And yeah, even now, I like when somebody messes up, I don't judge. I try to have them realize it.
Okay, so it sounds like from early on, there was this whole idea around problem solving. It's like, okay, you ran into a situation, you had an expectation, you had an outcome you wanted, and it didn't work. Why? And as you broke down that kind of problem solving, it gave you a lot more, I guess, resources of your own, so that you can navigate those types of situations in the future.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would like to say, like some people think resources are just, money, or understand your resources it's like your toolbox. Like, what are you putting in your toolbox? And that toolbox is what you're going to carry with you throughout life. So whether it's, quotes, whether it's a positive experience, whether it's, someone's uplifting you and you want to remember what they said. It doesn't have to necessarily be something physical. So
Absolutely.
yeah, the resources, my toolbox was full.
Okay, so as you were thinking about the toolbox, and because it's really interesting, because a lot of this is the kind of stuff that I work when I do my trainings and things like that on business planning and mindset. So, one of the things that we always do here at the morning show, shameless self-promotion. Absolutely shameless self-promotion, because if you're not going to tell your story, who is? So
100%. Yes.
my company, the Grinding Gang, one of the things that we do is when we're doing our trainings, we really focus in on what you're talking about, that decision-making process. Because as a CEO, that's the only thing you really bring to the table is your decision-making. Everybody, you can hire somebody to do everything else. You can get volunteers and the money doesn't change that, but you still have to make the decision. And it sounds like from a very early age, you were very certain in who you were and who you wanted to be, and had been kind of given the skills necessary to make the decisions to meet those places or to show up in those places the way you want it.
Yeah. Like it's always the little things to me. Like, for example, when I was young, like if we walked into a store, my father and I grabbed a Pepsi, instead of him saying, why would you drink that as juice or what, instead of judging the action, he would ask me, do athletes drink Pepsi?
Mm-hmm.
And I will, of course, I'm like 7 years old. I'm like, do they? and then he would start to explain, like, well, they actually drink water, and this is why.
Okay.
And so that I take into everything I do, like whatever business decision I make, I always try to break it down to the most minuscule negatives, because if you can figure out the negatives in the beginning, you have a better opportunity to go through them later on. So, and the reason why you point out the negatives in the beginning, it's good for your mental health, because when they come up later, you're not as stressed out, as anxious, as worried. Now you're like, wait, I thought about that before. I didn't think about a resolution. Let's stop for a minute now and let's do that.
Well, let me give you some pushback on that, though, because that is absolutely something that you need to do. But that advice may not work well for everybody, because there are some people who that's all they do. Once they start down a rabbit hole of everything that can go wrong, their anxiety, depression, and those types of things kick in. So it sounds like not only have you found a way to do those types of kind of long-term or projective analysis, you've also found a way to keep yourself from going into this depressive spiral and rabbit hole. Is that accurate?
That's 100% accurate, because now to go back to what you're saying, you're absolutely correct. What the individual needs to do is evaluate themselves and see what works for them.
Gotcha.
So these things work for me. If someone tries it and they get stressed out, then that may not be the move for you. You're absolutely correct with that. Okay. What I did is I always take self-analysis, in any situation. Simple things like, we're going to go to the grocery store. Should I drive? Should I walk? And because in my mind, and I'm thinking, I drive a lot, so I'm going to walk to the store.
Right.
So to me, it's all that. I'm very analytical, and it's funny. My wife cracks up with me. She goes, "I don't know how you can be so creative and analytical at the same time." And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm an alien. I don't know.
One of the things that I is the work that I've been doing trauma-informed training and stuff like that, and doing a lot of research on mental health and how it intersects people's daily lives. One of the things that I've started to realize is that there are a lot of people who have what would normally be classified as a learning disability or something like that. But the real deal is that they actually just learn differently. It's not a disability, it's an ability that does not conform to this social structure. So if we want to talk about mindset and mental health a little bit, for me, we can't talk about it without adding education to the mix. Because a lot of the stuff that we learn about how to even engage the world, we get taught while we're in school. Yeah. And one of the things that I tell people is one of the earliest laws to mandatory public education was in the northeastern colonies back in the day. And it was designed, and it read something like, those who are not enrolled in a continuing school, because that was the rich people school, the continuing schools, they would have to go to this public institution. Do you know why? It wasn't to make them better. It wasn't to help them learn. It was so that these street urchins would learn how to live in proper Protestant society. The first public school was designed for social control. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think a lot has changed in the interceding 400 plus years. Think about it, what we do in educational circumstances. What other species, besides for survival of food, tells their young just to sit down and don't move over a course of time? That is not how we explore. That is not how we learn. That is how we get trained to be good employees later on. That is how we get trained to think about the way I remember there's this several memes going around, but I remember this one in particular. There was this teacher who was sending this letter home about why the student was getting detention or suspended. And the issue was that the student was arguing with the teacher. The teacher said, like, miles are 1,057 miles when it's supposed to be 57 feet when it's supposed to be 1,064. And he corrected him, and the teacher was like, no, it's this. And he went back and forth with the teacher. In the note that when he talked about the student's disrespectful behavior, the teacher says, granted, he was correct, but he should not have challenged my authority in that way. And it was very disrespectful. The lesson, and the parent posted it to be like, no, I support my kid because they did the right thing. But guess what? Think about what that lesson teaches. He got in trouble. That means that even when you know the person in charge is wrong, just go along with it. That's the way you stay out of trouble. That's not the way you innovate. That is not the way you create leaders. That's the way you create drones.
Yes.
That's the way you create people who say things like, well, I was just following orders. And so, if we're going to talk about kind of these things, because what you're talking about, the way you're talking about your experience, is that your parents took a vested interest in deprogramming you. To not just getting you jumped on consequences, outcomes, and judgments, to be like, well, how did we get here? Because that is how you lead, that level of analysis, that level of engagement, and that level of decision making. So
I agree. It's funny, like what you're, to jump on what you're saying. If you look at people like Damon John and Richard Branson, they're both dyslexic. And they both in their books and in interviews, they both explain how they weren't good at math or they weren't good at school and they were D students. And even Gary Vee tells everybody, he was a D- student in college and in high school. And so some people might take that as, okay, so I don't really have to do the work in high school. No, what it is they said, that's not how I learn. And I understand that.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double down on how I learn. Damon John says that he would try to read books and he would have issues reading the book. And they were like, so what did you do? He goes, I would read the first page 14 times.
Right.
Until it started to sink in. So he understood, okay, this book is going to take me way longer.
Right.
But I'm still going to get the information I need out of it.
Right. And to that point, one of the places where we fail, especially as entrepreneurs, is when we try to live somebody else's business. Oh, D is doing that, so I'm gonna do that. It's okay. So some of my examples are not necessarily real socially appropriate. So y'all might want to log off now. No, this isn't bad, but it's like it's wearing somebody else's underwear. It's like those may work for you now, not even used, but like those look good on you. I don't know if they're gonna look good on me because like bodies are different. But if it's like, oh, he wore these to the Oscars or whatever, he looked fly, let me get that suit. It may look good on you. If we have the same body type, if hell, even because you was explaining it to me yesterday about the number of stitches in this, that I didn't even know about stuff like that. I'm like, I thought I was real fly with thread counts. You talking about stitches and quality, like, clothes. I wear clothes. Yep, I know that. But so like the mindset, just to understand who you are, and are getting away from the things that we have been trained to do, because we've not been trained to be leaders.
No. I agree.
In our community, the church used to do a good job of it. The church, but it was some people, like you got to go through the selection process. And then the church would be like, okay, now you're a good one, so here you go, some training.
Yeah.
Who does the leadership training anymore?
And it's funny because who does it now? It's those that it's the 5 people that you're around, but you have to understand that from the beginning. So we are our leaders and we are our trainers and our professors, but how many of us are actually holding ourselves accountable to that? I realized that I was a leader when I was like 9 years old, and the reason why, because one of my nephews is 6 years younger than me. And I would start to realize when I had a Snickers bar, he wanted my Snickers bar. When I was wearing my sneakers, even though they didn't fit him, he would wear my sneakers around the house. So, my pop nudged me on the shoulder one day and like, do you see what that is? And I was like, he wants to be like me. He goes, yeah, just like you wear my shirts. You wear my hat. And I was like, so I consciously, from that moment on, like I played organized football at 10 years old, and I made it my business that I would leave my house in my uniform to go to my games so he could see me in my uniform. And my nephews and nieces, it's funny, like an American Gangster when Frank Lucas said, I could have been a doctor, my nephews and nieces would have been a doctor. Literally, my nephews and nieces are business owners.
Right.
So I didn't tell them to. What that is that's them following my lead. So I consciously from young realized if I do something, they're going to do something. So I need to be conscious of what I'm doing.
Absolutely. I used to work on the board of directors for this organization called the Fraternal Order of Ex-Offenders. And we used to go out and Brother Bay, Ellsworth Johnson Bay, he was the president at the time. And we used to go out, and I remember the one time I went to watch him speak, he was talking to a group of law students at the University of Maryland. And he was telling them about his son. He said, my son is in federal prison on kingpin charges. He's been selling drugs since he was 10 years old. I know that he's been selling drugs since he was 10 years old because I put the package in his hand. I said, okay, I'm about to, this might be my last visit with you guys. Because I'm like, because again, it was early on in my career and I was, oh my goodness, I was clutching my invisible pearls because how would you do that to your son? Oh no, that, I was my just indignation at it all. And when I'm sitting, I was heated. Like I am about part of this organization. And I listened to him. He said, the reason that I did it is because I knew that in our neighborhood, that's where his opportunity was going to lie. I wanted to make sure before everybody else got put on at 14, 15, 16, that he had more time in the game, more experience, and could get mentored by bigger people so that he can go. And I was like that. And before I went to say bullshit, I thought about a week before. I had I think it was a traffic case because, I practice law. I've been licensed to practice. I got licensed to practice law in like 2002. And this may have been like 2006 or 7 or something. So I went to court to do a traffic case and I took my son with me. The reason I took my son with me is the same thing you're talking about. I never wanted him to walk into one of those rooms and get scared of those people. Those are people. These are the people daddy goes and hangs out with. These are the people I talk to. These are the people. I never wanted him to walk into that room and be scared. And it hit me in that moment. That's the only thing this man was doing to his kid.
Yep.
What do they say? But for the grace of God, go I.
Yes.
And when you start to recognize that these aren't bad people, these aren't, predators on their society. They are fathers and mothers and people who are just trying to do some good shit for their family. But the circumstances that they're in. And I love when I have opportunities like that because I love getting punched in the nose. You know that bop on the nose where you think you know everything, but like your mother used to say, hey.
Yep. Boop.
I love those because it forces me to go like, bro, you don't know enough.
Yeah.
All of this stuff in your head, you think you know, and because you have this, that, or third, thank you.
Yeah.
To the point that you have made several times. And the next thing we're going to talk about is accountability because it's so funny. Whenever you say that, it has a different gravity to it. So we're going to talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But as you start thinking about, as people start thinking about how they need to engage, it really does need to be how you engage. Don't put on nobody else's underwear. It might look good in them. You don't know what bulges are real and what aren't. So you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of technology out there. So I'm learning stuff, and my Facebook feed, something came up. I was like, that's not. Oh. It was. I'm working through some stuff. I apologize. Working through some stuff. We talk about mental health, so it's okay today. But let's talk about accountability, because one of the things that you said yesterday, talking about your wife and kind of how she would work with you to go through that process, you said it was important for you to have somebody that holds you accountable.
Yes.
Why?
A lot of people lie to themselves. You know, you may think you're better than what you are. You may think that you're perfect. You may think that you don't need any more education, any more experience. It's important to have someone or a community of people who can tell you, who can call your bluffs. And I know Horst can attest to this. When we had, when we was always in the studio with TCF, we held each other accountable. Like if you wrote a whack bar, everybody told you. That's not going to happen. Oh, well, you could write 16 bars. And if you had one whack bar, we all jumped on you like, no. First of all, you're more talented than. Stop being lazy.
So wait, so the first assessment is whether the talent actually exists or not. So you weren't holding, say, me, because I spit no bars. You weren't holding me to say one of my favorite rappers, Hove. You weren't holding me to a Hove standard. You were holding me to the best William standard, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Cool.
Because if somebody came in, and there's many people who will come in and try to come into the crew, and they will put their bars up, and we'll just be like, nah. And the thing about it is, we wouldn't judge somebody for their bars. We'd judge somebody as the character. Like if you came in so arrogant, we were like, none of us are arrogant. Like I don't walk in there and be like, I'm the best here. When I wrote, that's the competition. We had something that we call Beast the Track. So if me, Horst, and just say M3 did a track together, the objective wasn't for us to be cohesive. The objective was for us to challenge each other in each bar.
And I think that also goes to what you're talking about. And that's why I wanted to talk about accountability with you, because a lot of times when people talk about accountability, it's about bullying. We get bullied. It's like, well, why didn't you do that? How stupid are you? Blah, blah, blah. Yes. And what ends up happening, and again, going back to your mindset and the mental health, what you start realizing is that you start internalizing that. Yep. When you hear and when you are motivated by people yelling at you or asking you, why are you so stupid? And like I remember one time my younger sister, not the baby, but my younger sister, she spilled some Kool-Aid or something like that. And I heard her say, damn it, Tracy, why does this always happen to you? And I was like, yo, whoa. What's going on?
Yeah.
And that hit, again, punch in the nose, because it hit me like I talked to her like that. That sounded like my voice.
Yeah.
And recognizing, kind of like you were talking about with your cousin, your nephew, that they are following you and they start adopting your voice in their understanding. So when you're saying accountability, there is this portion of boundary, of expectation. But how do you offset that? And that's why I was asking you about, like, are you holding people to the accountability for who they are or some other standard?
You can never hold someone accountable to your standards because they're not you.
Okay.
You always like you said, like you when you heard your sister say that, you heard your voice, right? And it's funny. I read something where somebody was like people tell me, oh, you're talented. I say thank you. My wife tells me you need to accept that a little more, and I'm like, but you're right. She's right. My thing is, I'm here. I'm not here.
Right. Okay.
I don't see it's a part of me already.
So one of the things and that's a really great point, and I'm really glad that we're talking about it in the context of accountability.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time we think about accountability as the things that push us forward, the things that move us forward. But sometimes accountability is knowing when to say no. When to say thank you, when to say, because to all of my people out there, one of the things that I will tell you, all the people on internet land, if somebody gives you a compliment, just say thank you and take it. Because a lot of times, especially in single out Black women here, it's my experience, a lot of times they'll explain to you why it's not as good as you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that's a wonderful outfit. Oh, don't worry about this. I got this from Ross. It was on discount. Like, but how does that change what I said?
Yeah.
Oh, you look good. Oh, well, my this is blah, blah, blah. Or that was a really great presentation. Oh, but I forgot. I meant to mention this. I meant to mention that. My mom is good for this. She was like, I made you this, and you're sitting there loving it. It's like, yeah, but I didn't put this in it, and you probably will taste that this isn't there. And I'm like, why are you? A friend of mine told me this. Why are you yucking my yum?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sitting here enjoying it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what I hear is that, well, people don't really mean stuff like that anyway. So you're going to beat them to the punch.
Yeah.
And it's like, so this happens to me often because I am really one of the smartest people that most people will ever meet. Just it's a thing, and test scores say it too. So it's not just me talking; it's test scores. Yeah. But one of the things that happens a lot of times, I'll say something, people's like, "Oh wow, you're really smart," and I go like, "That's true." Gosh, you're arrogant. Like, why are you mad at me because I agree with you? Were you just saying it perfunctorily, or were you actually giving me a compliment? Because if you were genuinely giving me a compliment and I say thank you, then why are you mad?
Yeah.
That's like when you offer somebody, hey, I see you on, here's $20, and then, oh, thank you. Damn, you took it? Then why the hell did you offer it?
I've learned to do that. It's funny because somebody told me once that, like, you're a great giver, but you need to learn how to be a great receiver. Mm-hmm. And I've always, like I tell people, I don't give for the thank you. I give because that's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
But I've learned since to say thank you. Like I still like still to this day, one sale comes in. Like if I got 40 sales today, right? Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful for every sale. I'm not grateful for the day. I'm grateful for the moments within the day.
Yep.
And I just sometimes I'm like, I don't know how I don't know how to in words express my emotions.
Right.
So to me, I'm like, thank you just isn't enough. So it's important to do that. Like it's important to recognize, for you to be properly accountable, you have to recognize your actions. And sometimes you need people outside of you who you trust to acknowledge the fact that, okay, that was a real small thank you. Oh, your mind may have been over there, but sometimes you need to bring it here and show, Absolutely. And be accountable for that.
And the other part about this is the recognition about this part about how to take all of this information in is the recognition is that there is no right way to do it.
No,
you have to, you're making this up all the time. Every step of the way, you're saying like, okay, what should I do today? Because you've never done any of this stuff before.
100%.
And a lot of people, because okay, so this is about to be my turn because I'm about to get on the little soapbox, on this one. But a lot of people get so caught up in the damn stories in their head that, oh, by the time I'm this age, I should be. Says who? By the time I do this, I should be. Says who? Oh, I've been in business this long. Look at them. They've been in business that long. But they daddy gave them $300,000 to start.
Yeah.
You don't know your daddy. So like you're not even in the same league. And that type of engagement and that type of those stories in your head about who you should be. I think that is where a lot of the challenges in entrepreneurship come, because you are trying to be something that you are not.
Yeah.
This isn't you. Yeah. Again, kind of like wearing somebody else's underwear, but in that case, they just took them off. Don't do that. That's disrespectful.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to be honest. I don't know who I know well enough to put on their underwear. I got to be.
I'm good.
This is probably a part of the conversation that Donnie's going to call me about later. So never mind, I'm going to stop.
Yeah. You might get a text right now.
I'm going to call on that one.
We're gonna see you do one of these. Okay, so what I said was,
I just heard my one of my messages pop off, and I was like, oh, that's probably somebody be like, watch yourself. but you got to keep it real, because this is the real kind of things that happen for entrepreneurs, for leaders in business as well, especially those African Americans.
Yeah. Because
as much as we don't like to, not even like to, we try to pretend. Many of us try to pretend that the rules aren't different, or that if I just work hard enough, I can overcome.
Yeah, that's not true.
That's not true, because no matter what you achieve, relative to people of it's particularly people, white people, you will have accomplished less relative to your investment. Those are statistics.
Yeah.
And understanding though, and this is the really interesting part, what I'm saying is like it's all about the balance.
Yeah.
These stories in your head need to be anchored in real life.
Yes.
But you also have to think about the reality of life. The reality is that I walk into a room black first.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
Will it impact the effect of the conversation or impact what we're doing? Maybe, maybe not. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be a factor. That is something I have to live with every moment of every day, every time I send an email, every time I choose a word to use.
Yeah.
If I use too much slang, do I seem like a hood dude? If I use my GRE vocabulary, do I sound like I'm trying to act white or whatever the hell that means? Yeah. How do I relate? And that is the part they don't tell you. Yeah, this is all about the balance.
It is. When I was part owner in a digital billboard company, we went to I set up a meeting on Wall Street. Went through one of my clients. I was consulting a couple of Wall Street executives at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because my partner came with a suit. And I came with my polo, my jeans, my kicks, my snap, my hat. And when we got to the office, he looks at me. He was like, I know you set up the meeting, but you could have showed a little respect. And I was like, I am. He was like, and how? I was like, because I came as me.
Boom.
And the funny thing is, the guy who comes through the door owns the financial firm. Mm-hmm. So he's wearing a pair of Jordans. He's wearing a snapback. He walks up to me. He gives me that. Yo, how you doing? How the family? Everybody good? This is literally how he's talking to me. Everybody good? Like you good? Like you straight? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. He's like, all right, let's go handle this. So the guy's like, oh, who's that? And I'm like, that's the guy we came to meet. So he was like, so I was like, you want to impress them with your. I was like, I love suits.
Yeah.
But I wear them when I need to wear them.
It's a uniform.
Yes. And I wear, I always go into meetings as me because I want to know if you're going to deal with me, I want you to see me from the door.
Absolutely.
Because if I come in here, if I'm sitting down with Nike and I walk in with a 3-piece suit and we talking about, the Deelorri version.
I'm tired of this, y'all. I'm tired of this. You're real disrespectful. I got Doug Gansler, gubernatorial candidate for Maryland, coming on the show tomorrow, and I'm about to see if I'm like, yo, this is a great conversation, and we only got 40 minutes left. Sorry, I'm because this is, but this is it. That you are talking about what? Oh, by the way, everybody, Doug Gansler, gubernatorial candidate for Maryland, is going to be here on the morning show tomorrow, and we're going to ask him some questions about particularly why Black people should vote for him. In Maryland should vote for him to be governor. So come on tomorrow and enjoy that. We're gonna have a good time getting our feet into politics. But dude, you kind of going back to, but you are hitting on the right thing. It is the only thing that you can do better than anybody else is be you.
Yeah,
that's it. If you try and game recognize game, and early on in your career, sometimes, or early on in your business, you don't know what you're doing. So you just model what other people are doing. But at the point that you decide who you are, at the point you decide what you're going to do, then be that.
Yeah.
Because game recognize game.
Like, don't just be it. You have to own it. Like
that identity.
You got to win and lose by it.
Right. That is who you are. But here's the other part about it too. You don't have to be that forever. The issue is, and this is what happens in regular relationships and also business relationships as well. People are like, well, I started this, I'm gonna keep it real, I'm gonna be true to who I am. I do not wear the onesie that I wore when I was a kid. It was cute, but I can't get that up over my arm.
Yeah.
So everything about you changes. And I know that's a hyperbolic example, but everything about you changes. Yeah. So why wouldn't your philosophies not change? Why would your friends not change? Hell, your family literally changes. It grows, it develops. People die, people get married, people are born. Everything changes, but somehow many of us get stuck on this idea that we have to be the same. Or even worse, we got to go back. How many people will talk about like, oh, I heard, whoa, yeah, this story. Then I'm gonna let you get back because I realize I'm having a great time now. This
Me too, brother. Me too, bro.
You might okay. We're gonna have to talk about you coming back again. So I had a friend. She had recently got divorced, and we were looking over her, putting up pictures and stuff like that. And she was looking at her wedding photos. And she was like, oh my God, I wish I could get back down. She said, no, she said, if I could get back down to that size, I would be so happy. I said, I call bullshit. She was like, I could get back down to that size. I could exercise. I was like, no, you could absolutely do that. I said, but I remember when you got married, because her husband was cut up like a bag of dope. And she said, I remember her saying, she said, I can't believe we'll look down the aisle and see this white whale coming. That's what you thought then, when you were that size. So it's not that number on the scale. It's not the size of that dress. It is how you perceive the world. Because if that number could have made you happy, you would have been happy then. Because your circumstances have changed. You are trying to go back to a place you weren't even happy when you were there.
And you don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. And you're right. And as time evolves, we evolve. Go to piggyback off of that, we're gonna go to your boy Jay Hove. A lot of his audiences, he dropped the 444 album, and people were like, oh man, but we want that Reasonable Doubt Jay. And he's not there. Like Reasonable Doubt Jay was when Jay was at that moment. 444 Jay is an evolved, grown man in different circumstances.
One of the best lines, and I'm gonna try to see if I can get it. He says, I used to rhyme like common sense. Then I did 5 mics. I ain't been rhyming like common sense. Because who was it? Cardi B. They were talking about, well, you need to do more evolved music. You always talking about this. I love Cardi B. She said, all y'all, when I was doing that, y'all wasn't buying it. And she listed off 8 female rappers that are real positive. Said, but y'all not buying their stuff. I say go buy that. I support them. But all y'all want to buy is me talking about pussies and dicks. That's all y'all want to buy. And so that's what I'm going to give you. Like, why would I give you the stuff that you're not going to buy? And that's what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. You get so caught on your story that you forget your customer. And there's this balance that you have to have with your customer. There is your identity and their needs. And you're a good customer, the sweet spot is where your identity and what you do fits their needs and their budget.
And that's the answer. That's the resolution.
That is a moving target on a good day.
Yes.
So, you might hit a little bit over, hit a little bit under, but you keep shooting.
Yes, you got to. Like you that's what we were talking about yesterday. You can't forget who you are. You always now. There's no. You have to remember who you are and evolve that. You can't just move out of that. You have to accept the evolution of your business, the evolution of you as a human being, and you have to and move with it. You can control it. Like, okay, now I'm going a little too far. I gotta bring it back in a little bit, but don't halt the fact that it's growing. Keep watering that plant.
And the other part too is making sure that you know where you want to go, and that decision can switch every day if you choose. I wouldn't suggest you switch it that much, but until you find something that you're comfortable doing, these are just decisions. I remember because I'm divorced, and one time when I was married, I was talking to my baby sister, and I was like, "Oh, somebody's having a party here." Actually, I think wasn't even a party. It was the Smirnoff taste testing competition in Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay. I was like, because Smirnoff was part of my whole therapy back then. It was different. Yeah. It was a different time. Gotcha. So I was like, yo, I should just go. And she was like, you're married. You can't just up and go wherever you want. And I was like, Dad, you do something 12 years ago and people bring it up all the time. And, kind of joking. And she was like, You didn't get married. You said, that's not 12 years ago. I was like, yeah, it was 12 years. She said, no, you do that every day. Every day you decide to stay married. Every day you decide to do that. And if you're going to stay married, then you should be married every day. I was like, oh, you got a point. I'm all right. Sorry. But again, talking about the accountability, she wasn't trying to jump on me. She wasn't trying to disrespect me. She held me accountable to what she knew I needed to understand.
Yes. Yes.
And having and one of the things that I am so impressed with
Mm-hmm.
in each conversation that you and I have had, you have been very clear to talk about the impact and influence of your wife in your success.
Yes.
And not that I'm suggesting that everybody needs to get married or everybody needs to have a significant other, but I know you need a person.
Yes.
Now, sometimes if you can't find everything in one person, not talking about relationship wise, sometimes you need somebody that you can talk finance with, but they might not understand a damn thing about marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you find somebody you can talk sales with, but you bet not let them hold a dime
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're good at sales, but that's how they get sales. They spend a whole bunch of money to get it. And again, understanding who you are, you can figure out where these people fit in your world. But what I tell you, when you get that one that takes care of you and takes care of you well, I had she wasn't even an assistant; she was my handler
Mm-hmm.
when I was running an entrepreneurship center. Her name was Michelle Holcomb, and she made life better because she would check me, and I
Yeah.
trusted her to do that. So when I would say, "Oh, let's try that," that's a crazy person thought. We're not going to do that. What? And then she'd be able to express to me how I could understand why that was a crazy thought, why it would take too many resources, why even if it was a good idea, it wasn't a good idea now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also on the other side, she was amazing when I had doubts that weren't realistic. That we talk a lot about having people check us when we try to go too far, but
Mm-hmm.
as important are those people who push us when we are afraid of our own greatness.
Yes. Yes. And it's super hard to see your greatness because it's even when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you're not really seeing. You're just
No,
seeing a reflection of you. When you got
can't see.
somebody you can trust and rely on, and they outside of you, they see you, and it's like, I got a really really small circle of individuals that do that.
Right.
Like my two brothers, Dak and Soup, and these two like I'll sit there and throw an idea, and they'll stay quiet, and then they'll be like, "You ready?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'll grab my, I'll go ahead." And they'll just let me know, like, "Yo, that's a dope idea, but that's not you."
Right.
So where can we take that? Or
Yes.
they may be like, "That's a dope idea, but that's 20 years down the line."
Right.
We don't, because sometimes it's fun. I tell people at times when I drive, I speak out loud. I think out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that because I realize I learn differently when I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm thinking a thought and I hit the red light and now I'm thinking about the red light, I forgot the thought. But when I say it out loud in my car, I hear it and now I remember it.
So that actually, and I advise a lot of my entrepreneurs to do that. And I used to think that the talking to myself was a sign of crazy. Now I may be crazy. Don't get it twisted. Like, there are diagnoses and things, so I am crazy, but
Which
that's
is,
not evidence of it. Like,
yes.
what to what you're in this again. It's so funny that Horst used to tell me, it's like, "Oh, you remind me a lot of D, blah, 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 my man D," and I'm like, I don't remind too many people of too many people. That's not really something I hear often, but like, I get it, because what I do is I record it the same thing, because my meds keep me from remembering certain things. So I'm like, I record it while I'm talking. And some of the things I've heard myself say that I forgot that I said have been amazing ideas.
Yes.
Actually, a lot of the stuff for how we do the morning show has been me talking to myself in the commuting back and forth to my mom's house. When I go down to visit her, I start thinking, thanks, Paul. Got a comment from Paul. Appreciate you. But a lot of these thoughts about how we engage in the conversations and the things that are important happen in those commutes, because you are the only person who has to live with the consequences of your decision. Other people, it may impact them, but you did it.
Yeah.
And even if you give the decision to somebody else, that's still a decision. So as entrepreneurs, what I always advise, work on your decision making.
Yeah.
And don't get so caught up on what's going on. Let's see. Oh, absolutely. Who is this? Griffin. Absolutely, Griffin. There is nothing wrong about talking to yourself, because I saw this one meme that said, "There's nothing." I talk to myself because sometimes I need expert help, because I had to think about it at one point. It's like, people literally give me money to explain to them what they should do about their business. Why wouldn't I listen to me? You know, but again, a lot of it for me, I recognize was some of the trauma about how I grew up, about some of this bullying motivation in my life throughout my life, where, you know, if my grades dropped, it was like, well, what's wrong with you? What didn't you do? Blah, blah, blah. So for me, failure was, you know, that's how I found myself motivating me.
Yeah.
I would talk to me and be like, God, you so, like what I was telling about my sister. Like, oh my gosh, you know, this what's happening with me and stuff like that. I must have messed up. I'm da 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 da. That's something that was real to me.
Yeah.
And I had to get back and really start in therapy and stuff like that, just talking to him about what I was saying to me. Because at a certain point, I remember one time, and this was one of those recording times, and I was thinking about something and it hit me in the middle of the thought that I had forgotten to pay a bill or something, and I was going to have to get a late fee. And I went on this tirade of how stupid I was. I mean, all of it. Like, God damn it, you dumb mother, but that bop, like all of it. And when I was playing back the tape or whatever, I was like, if I heard anyone talk to someone like that, if I would be like, hey, yo, dude, chill. I don't even know who you're talking to, but don't do that. But that was my voice. And then I have to wonder, how long has that been my voice inside? How long have I been using what other people say and using that voice as my own and holding me accountable to shit that was never mine?
Yep. I when I started to realize that, some of what I do now is, it's funny. I don't know if you follow Will Smith, but if you listen to Will Smith speak, he speaks slow.
Yeah.
And he says the reason why he learned how to speak slowly is so he can listen to himself talk and make sure he's saying what he's trying to say. He's like, I want to say what I mean. I don't want to mean what I say. You know, like he doesn't want to say something and then be like, no. What I meant to say was, so he tries to speak slowly. So things like that, what I do is when I'm thinking, I've learned to shut down my thought. So I'll sit there, and if I feel my thought is a negative thought, is an angry thought, or anything of that nature, I'm like, no, I'm not even going to accept that. And that's not going to happen.
Right.
And what it does is now I'm beginning to see it externally. Before I would snap when something would get me upset. Now I breathe when something gets me upset.
And so and I want to make a very clear distinction in two parts of what you're talking about, though.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is controlling your mind when your mind decides that it's going to wild out.
Yes.
But be careful, and I want to make sure that everybody else out there understands that there is a difference between pushing yourself and holding yourself to that level of accountability, and also recognizing who you are.
Yes.
Being again, not getting caught into that motivation by abuse. It is so easy to get caught into that, oh, this is my fault. And the idea, and what I tell people is like, if you've ever tried to stop loving somebody or to love somebody and you weren't able to do it, or if you've ever had a song stuck in your head and you can't get it out, that's evidence that you don't control your emotions or your thoughts. Because what you're talking about is, once you have them, what do I do with them? But a lot of times what ends up happening with a lot of entrepreneurs I work with is that they start with, oh, I'm fucked up because I had this thought. Look at this. I can't. I thought I messed up. So look, and then they end up beating themselves up about having the thought.
Yep.
And there's this level of grace, not enabling. No.
But
a level of grace that I really do believe we owe ourselves.
Absolutely. Because as you evolve, you need the first of all, you need to pat yourself on the back. Like, you have to celebrate. Now I tell people all the time, because like we'll have a great day, and I'm not gonna go out and pop champagne but my celebration is cool. You know what? Let's celebrate this. Let's acknowledge what happened. It was a great day. Let's be thankful and grateful for it. Okay, but now after we do that, that's my celebration. After we do that, what did we do to get it here?
Right. And that is what you're talking about, is again that balance.
Yes.
Because I have actually one of my favorite customers who does international and global stuff. She doesn't, in my opinion, does not celebrate her successes enough, because there's always the next project. It's always these, because you have to have all of the roles, you finance, marketing, sales, CEO, executive, the entire CEO suite. And you are delivery, logistics, inventory, shipping, purchasing, procurement, like you're all of those. And so there's always work to be done. But that's what I tell my entrepreneurs. You have to do all of the stuff and make all of the decisions that CEOs have to make, but have fewer resources.
Yeah.
So of course this is going to be more difficult for you. Of course it's easier for a dude from Pepsi just to say this is what we're supposed to do, because he had 15 people working on it.
Yep. Yep.
You got you and Google.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a level of kindness that we not enabling, though. And that's the thing about balance. Where is the difference between being kind to yourself and enabling yourself?
Yeah.
And that place will move. All of this shit moves. You will, where you are today. If you are where you are tomorrow, if you are tomorrow where you were today, then there may have been something that went wrong, unless you choose.
Yeah.
Because that's the other part about the mental health is, and you said it yesterday, no is the most powerful word in business.
Yes.
I tell people all the time, all money ain't good money. Some of that needs to be left on the table.
I tell people not every dollar's my dollar. Stop telling me like where I need to be, how I need to be, without understanding the mission. If you don't understand the business of what we do and how we do it, how are you going to give me your advice from your perspective? Does it relate to what I'm doing? Sometimes it doesn't.
So the piece that I would say to entrepreneurs on that, you too, is like, that's what they're supposed to do. People supposed to give you unsolicited advice that has nothing to do with you and they don't know, because that's what people do.
Yeah.
To your point about no, your job as an entrepreneur is to know which part of it is just to let that go in. You don't need to argue. People say stupid stuff all the time. You know what you need to do? You needed to get a 6X hoodie so you could go on my 600-pound life. And what? That's not my target market. Hell, but they're supposed to say that because that's an idea. And apparently we just share shit. But for you as an entrepreneur, it's like, oh, that is an idea, just not for me. You don't need to argue with them. You don't even need to tell them no. For me, it's like, you know what? Let me consider that.
Yeah. So you don't have to say no.
Right.
But there's different ways of saying. With my photo booth company, I used to tell people all the time, oh, can I get a discount? We're not a discount photo booth company, and we're not a cheap photo booth company. You can look from Google for that.
There you go. All right, we're about to. You done it again. You got me talking and stuff, and my alarm keeps going on, telling me we got to go. We only got 2 minutes. So you know what? Is this part of your whole scheme not to have to spit on the mic? Was this part of your scheme? You know what? That's okay. Because how about this? You owe me the next time you here. We're going to lead off with you spitting, and I'm looking for good stuff now because it's more than 23 hours next time. Okay? But what I want to do, because I don't feel like, I have had a chance to go over the website and talk to some people who purchased your clothes, and I didn't do you justice yesterday. So this is what I'm going to do. The morning show is going to offer a hoodie. We're going to pick up the cost for it. For one of our viewers, everybody who subscribed to our channel and to BlackUSA.news, you are going to be in. You're going to have an option to enter in. But the way that you get counted is you either like this video, leave a comment or whatever. If you like it, you get one chance. We'll add you into the thing, into the drawing once. If you leave a comment, we'll enter you in 4 times. And we'll do this before our interview with Doug Gansler tomorrow. We're going to announce who it is, who won the hoodie. And then, I'll talk to you later and we'll coordinate behind the scenes how all the logistics work out. That cool?
Perfect.
Listen, and you still don't get it twisted. That's still, you still owe me. You still owe me some bars. Okay. Don't do that. All right.
Hold on. Let me write down these bars.
So also, ladies and gentlemen out there in internet land, we are about to wrap up. Thank you very much Please look
Thank
for
you,
us
grateful.
tomorrow when we talk to gubernatorial candidate Doug Gansler. You all have a wonderful day.